Okay, Trump just announced tariff exemptions over the weekend on smartphones, computers, and chip makers. Now, this is very important because a lot of this has to do with China. And a lot of this is going to affect Nvidia, Apple, so on and so on. And it's almost as if the trade war between the US and China is coming to an end, or at least that's what they want you to think. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. I'm going to talk about charts. I'm going to show you what's basically right in front of us, but then what is actually to come and what I think is going to happen with the market. So you're going to want to watch the video all the way through. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, completely free. That is all I ask. And I appreciate all the love and support that you guys show on the channel. I couldn't do this without you guys. Also, in the middle of the video, we are going to be covering GameStop, but we're going to take a pause and cover it at the end because this entire video is going to be mashed together as the overall sentiment that I expect in the markets going forward. Okay, so without further ado, let's get into it. So we have tariff exemptions obviously announced over the weekend, and I gave you guys a trade that somebody front ran that probably made you a little bit aggravated when you could have entered SPY 0 DTE 521 strike call options the day it jumped 9.5%, and you could have turned $1,000 into over $1.4 million. Now, somebody also just front ran the Apple trade. We saw bullish premium on Apple, nearly 19 million on Friday. Traders targeting short dated $200 and $210 calls for April 17th. Which means we are likely going to see some sort of catapult happen in Apple, and then all of a sudden we have these tariff exemptions announced on one of them being phones. And obviously Apple does a lot of business over in China, right? A lot of these companies do, but it's not just that. 2 minutes before close on Friday, somebody bought $850,000 worth of SPY 554 calls expiring Monday. And actually that strike is interesting, and I'll tell you why with the charts as well. But you can see how corrupt this is, how corrupt the stock market is once again, and we will continue to expose the corruption like we've done the past 5 years. Okay, they are getting tipped off. Now let's look at the market from a little bit of a macro standpoint. We see a big weekly candle with a lot of volume, and it overall looks pretty decent. But then you look at the daily time frame. Yes, we got a lot of volume on this candle up here, but we are having fading volume breaking back into this channel. But then you see that the day we had a lot of volume, there was no upper wick on this, meaning the SPY is likely to have a lot of strength moving right up to 549 and maybe even higher. A lot of strength because there's no sell wicks up here, okay? And there is a gap fill right around 555. Based on both of these, just basic standpoints where we look at the charts, we see, well, the SPY looks like it had a pretty good bounce and it's looking pretty good coming in next week. And I'll talk about what I actually think is going to happen at the end of the video. But we look at GameStop and we kind of see the same thing where it's looking very good, but we are seeing fading volume. So we're seeing a couple of dangerous warning signals for the market. Because if this was really the bottom and people do really get tipped off, then you'd see institutions loading the boat. But realistically, that's not what we're seeing. Now, if we look at GameStop on the weekly, we're also seeing a huge weekly candle. Now, from a technical standpoint, and this is not all technicals with GameStop because I think we're about to have a squeeze, but keep in mind, from a technical standpoint, I would be surprised if we don't reject here on GameStop. Yes, we got a full body on the weekly coming up to this level around 2650. But you can see the last time we had that back here, May 13th of 2024, we had a huge down candle all the way down to 1785. Will that happen? I'm not necessarily calling for it, but it would technically make sense. And then the other times we came into the zone, every single time you did still see a long upper wick here, back here, and then a full-on rejection, right? Full-on rejection several times. That is because there's huge sell blocks up here, right? Huge sell blocks. So this week also ends 4/17. And then we also know that there's a big date 4/20 coming up. And I'll tell you more about GameStop towards the end of the video. But we move into Bitcoin, and historically, based on this pattern with Bitcoin, on top of us seeing a death cross on Bitcoin's daily chart, Historically, this is all bullish. Even though it may not seem like it, this is a pattern that usually plays out before a major bull rally, a bull run, right? We sell off and then we sell off a little bit further where we shake paper hands out, hit liquidity levels, we start pumping, we get a death cross. The last time we saw it back here, and then we got this major pump. Before that, major pump, right? It's not necessarily saying that is going to happen, but hey, the stock market looks like it bottomed out. GameStop's building crazy momentum. And then also on top of that, if you go and you look at the news, a lot of banks, I believe Goldman, are predicting major short squeezes from retail investors across the board. Then we're also seeing XRP, other altcoins up massive amounts. XRP's up about 6%, 214. And you look at it from a standpoint where you'd say, well, I'd be surprised if XRP got under 163 again. It got bought up so quick. Most of these altcoins hit insane lows that we'd never thought they'd hit in this market, and it almost looks as if it's all up from here. As well as Nvidia, I want to say there was very little volume on Friday, but we got this huge green candle and a huge bounce off of $86. I mean, we sold under 90 bucks, which was probably a great buying opportunity for Nvidia, but will it go lower? We also saw a huge weekly green candle with a lot of volume, overall looking great. Then you have these tariff exemptions. Same goes with Apple, huge weekly candle, a lot of green volume. We come and we take a look at Tesla as well. Huge green candle, most volume as of recently out of any of these candlesticks, and then fading volume on this downtrend, but also building a wick on this descending resistance level, which is now support. Tesla looks like it's going to have a big green candle Monday, maybe coming up to 300, as well as Apple, as well as Nvidia. But what's interesting is Apple needs to increase prices of their MacBook by 39% to cover costs of tariffs if they go back in place. The reason I'm bringing this up is because even though we're seeing these exemptions, we're still seeing companies raise prices, and we're still seeing a lot of uncertainty. But if everything was fallen on the tariffs, then technically we should be sunshine and rainbows going forward, right? So if we don't see the SPY, if we don't see the SPY get back to 585 Monday and Tuesday, well, what are we worried about, right? It's not all the tariffs, and obviously the people who watch my channel know that. Japanese yen carry trade unwind, the basis trade. The trade that happened during March 2020 almost looks identical, except now it's blown out of proportion even more. And we got one green candle on the weekly, and now people are calling for higher. And in my opinion, I don't think that's going to happen. I mean, we see what's happening with gold. We can't just look away from that. We've seen what's happening with the US dollar. We can't just look away from that. And even though President Trump has said the US dollar value will go up way stronger than ever, what normally happens when the dollar goes up, stocks go down, okay? But here's what I want to point out to you, right? One of the major things that we have to pay attention to is that the Fed said they will intervene, which is what we saw in March of 2020. There was a big Fed bailout, okay? This is very important because the Fed said, yes, they will intervene, but here's the thing. That is what is bullish for the markets. And in order for the Fed to intervene, there has to be a reason for them to intervene. And if the SPY is pumping, there's not a reason for them to intervene. If the SPY is in sheer panic and we crack beneath this double bottom that we saw down here, we crack beneath the relative support, that is when the Fed will intervene. These institutions who are stuck in these heavily leveraged trades need the Fed to intervene, and the Fed knows it. And what's going to happen here is, in my personal opinion, come Monday, write this down. Come Monday, we pump up to 553 to 555 and get a gap fill. And then the rest of the week, by Friday, we have hard moves down. We break that lower level under 485. We break under 465. We potentially even come all the way down to 410. Fed steps in the next week, right around 420 or early May, when they're expected to have that meeting. I believe it's May 7th, probably cut rates, whatever it may be. And this is when we get back into a bull market. Okay, this is very important. Now, on top of that, even if the Fed intervened, okay, let me just say something here, right? This is not something that we would see all the time, but I want to talk about how a lot of cryptos look bullish alongside GameStop having potential short squeezes, but it's not necessarily all good for the market. Yes, likely scenario, it is good for the market, but what we could see is if the Fed goes dovish, right, and they cut rates, or if the Fed prints money, yes, we will see liquidity being injected into the markets. Things will be all sunshine and rainbows, but it will still weaken our currency. And then we also have that debt situation, right? There's a lot of issues still in the market alongside these tariffs, right? Everyone says tariff this, tariff that. I believe markets are confused, markets are uncertain, and institutions are ultimately not necessarily confused, but uncertain. What's happening is, I've said it time and time again, and you don't want it to happen, but unfortunately it's happening, not with you guys, but retail is being exit liquidity again, in my opinion. Everyone's calling for higher. I think it's clear institutions aren't calling for higher. They're not ready for it to go higher. They want a Fed intervention. And in my opinion, retail is buying in while they are not. And retail will be exit liquidity once again. This is what I see coming Monday, and we can't overlook the April 12th test that we have being ran by the DTCC. We're probably going to see crazy market movements on Monday. And don't get me wrong, I am in SPY puts. Those are probably going to get crushed on Monday. I will likely double down if I have the chance. Now, I also want to note, alongside all this, I do still think the main play is GameStop, AMC, these short squeeze plays. I think they're going to be huge, and they're probably the most guaranteed, in my opinion. Nothing I say is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just stating what I think, where I'm putting my money. I can't tell you what to buy, hold, or sell, obviously. Now, GameStop is being Google searched a lot more. It seems like there's a surge in investor interest in GameStop, which is always good. And then we also saw somebody buying a bunch of the May monthlies in 5,000 order blocks, just like Roaring Kitty did. It looks like he's coming back. And that resurrection date, right? The 420, the Easter date. And then we have, obviously, more and more institutions continuing to load up on GameStop. Overall, we have a lot of important stuff coming for the week. This is going to be a fun week. It's going to be an important week. If you're not in my Discord server, make sure to join. It's the top link in the description of the video, where we talk stocks and crypto all day long. Best vibes, best people. There are no bad questions, whether you're a beginner or advanced trader. This is the place to go. And I look forward to talking with everybody in there, trading with everybody in there, and ultimately making money with everybody in there. So if you're not in the Discord server, make sure to join. We also have tons of benefits. If you don't want to chat in there, you can read the chat, but you can also get AI alerts for market news, daily market news. So it's a one-stop shop. Dark pool trade alerts, insider trade alerts, option sweep alerts, tons more in there. So get in the Discord. Under that, you can get your free stocks, and then you can get your futures account, and so on and so on. A funded futures account, live trading account where you can take payouts. That is it, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. I love you all. God bless. Lottery Stocks out.